Happy Monday. Welcome to Deep Talks in the Jeep, part 823. I guess. I have no idea. So today's topic of discussion would be about the ring-straked and the spotted goats and calves in Genesis 31. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, flip over to Genesis 31 real quick and read a little bit about Jacob and his father-in-law Laban. So Jacob and his father-in-law Laban, they raised goats and sheep and cattle. And anytime there was a goat or a sheep or a calf that was born and had spots and wasn't pure, they considered it imperfect or blemished, right? That got me thinking. So one of my coworkers actually raises goats, and nowadays we consider the ones that are marked up really pretty to be more desirable, right? See where I'm going with this? So back in biblical times, the blemished goats were the ones with the spots or the different eye colors or something like that, right? But God wanted the unblemished ones for the sacrifices, right? Stay with me a minute. But we find, interestingly enough, in Genesis 31, that because God's hand was on Jacob and because he had blessed him, Jacob had been given all of the ring-straked and spotted goats. Like I said, the ones that weren't perfect, the imperfect ones. But every time they reproduced, they were reproducing the ones without blemish. They were reproducing the ones without blemish. Here's my point. We as human beings are imperfect. The Bible is proof that God uses the imperfect things, the most imperfect things, and gets the most glory out of using them, right? Jesus was from Galilee, and Philip was one of his disciples, and he said, it was either Philip or Nathaniel, I forget which, and he said, can anything good come out of Nazareth? That's where Jesus was born, right? So when he was born, he was considered blemished because of that. He came from the line of David. David was the great-grandson. He was either the great-grandson or the great-great-grandson of Ruth and Boaz. Ruth was a Moabite. The Moabites were considered unclean. So David came from a line that wasn't considered pure, right? Jesus came from David's line. How much? Oh man, it's so good when you get a hold of it. But like I said, the pure, unblemished goats came from the blemished ones. That just goes to show you that no matter how messed up you think your life is, how, useless you think you are in the kingdom of God, he uses the foolish things to confound the wise. And Paul says that in one of his letters. In fact, I think it's either to the Corinthians or the Thessalonians. I'm thinking it's the Thessalonians, but he uses the foolish things to confound the wise. So he uses the things that you would not think that he would use to get glory out of. I don't know if that hit anybody else like it hit me, but it really made me smile. It got me excited, about had me shouting, about had me speaking in tongues over it. I was coming apart. But and the cool thing about it is today we consider the blemishes more beautiful rather than perfection. Jesus' scars made that possible. God made that possible. So now, the goats that come out spotted, the goats that come out with different eye colors, they're worth more money. Because they're unique. They're different. They're not cookie cutter like everybody else. Jesus wasn't cookie cutter like everybody else, but he was the perfect sacrifice. He was the one that nobody thought, based upon his lineage or whatnot, would be who he was. and something pure came out of it. God, that's good. Happy Monday. I love you. He definitely loves you. And we hope you have a great week, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Bye.